Hey everyone, this is Rivio from Loops, and today I'm going to show you some beginner plus advanced reverb tips and tricks that you can work with vocals or synths. So in this project, I'm going to use both vocals and synths to show you how you can apply reverb on these two elements. And also I'm going to give you some tips on how to make your mix sound clean. And one of the most important factors of your mix sounding clean is obviously how you apply reverb to your elements. So let's dive straight into it, and let's start with vocal reverb. So I have this vocal right here from Splice. Let's take a listen.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin. I don't wanna feel your touch if it's empty again. I don't wanna feel your cold, cold hands. I don't wanna spend another night alone again.
So that's our vocal, and I have linked it to mixer track 30. Let me rename it. Okay, so here's our vocal.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin.
Very dry and simple, and I've just added a FabFilter Pro MB and a Q2 to make it sound a bit more clean. As you can see, nothing special. I just used a preset called vocal. And now let's add reverb just the way every beginner would. So let's go to the mixer track and select Valhalla Blade Reverb. And first of all, the vocal is gonna sound like this. You don't want that unless you're making a search song, which we are not at the moment. So we're gonna set the mix ratio to around 25, reduce the size to 80%, and keep the decay as it is for now. Let's hear it now.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin.
The mix is still really loud, and let's decrease the decay to 2.5 seconds.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin. I don't wanna feel your touch if it's empty again. I don't wanna feel your cold, cold hands. I don't wanna spend another night alone again.
Let's hear it in contrast to the mix.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin. I don't wanna feel your touch if it's empty again. I don't wanna feel your cold, cold hands. I don't wanna spend another night alone again.
Sounds about right, but that's one way of adding reverb. That is the very simple way of just slapping reverb on top of any vocal, any synth. So next we're gonna do the same with this synth right here. Let's listen to the synth. So let's listen to our synth, but first of all, I need to mention that my project was lagging a bit, so I had to render my chords out. But anyways, let's listen to our synths. So that's our synth without any reverb, and let's add some reverb on our synths. Let's just throw in the normal reverb that we did in the vocal. I'm gonna use the same parameters to start with. Let's see how it sounds. Yeah, we can go a bit overboard with this one. Let's go 30. Let's go 3.5. Okay. The sound is really windy already, so we don't want to make it go way too much in the background, but yeah, here to just show you an example. Let's listen. Okay, let's listen to it in contrast to the mix. It sounds the same, it sounds a bit better with the reverb than without, but now let's dive into the best part, which is my favorite reverb technique. So what I just showed you is a very normal example and a normal way of adding reverb, which might make your mix sound a bit muddy and make it sound messed up as well. So let's dive into this technique, which is, let me name this. So here's our vocal bus, and what we're gonna do is link it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna route this vocal bus to another mixer track, which is, which is empty. So now it's gonna sound like,
I wanna feel your fingertips on my skin.
yeah, it's doubling right now, and we're gonna name this reverb. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna go ahead and add a EQ. I'm gonna explain why I'm adding an EQ first, but let me just go about it for now.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips.
And that to such an extreme of an EQ. So yeah, now what we are gonna do is we're gonna add reverb, the fruity one. It's my favorite reverb when it comes to a task like this. So this is the reverb I use 99.9% of the time when I'm mixing vocals, synths, or anything where I'm using this technique. So we're gonna drive the dry knob to 0%, increase the reverb to 80% for now, keep the decay into 3 seconds, increase the room size to 80, put the color to warmer, low cut for 155, and we should be good to go. And once again, we're gonna copy the EQ after the reverb, and let's hear how it sounds right now. So keep in mind that since I reduced the dry knob to 0%, it's only bringing in the wet signals of the reverb. So let me show you how. I'm gonna unlink the vocal bus to the master. So right now the sound you're hearing is this reverb bus, which is carrying only 100% wet reverb. So let's listen to it. So let's link it again, and now let's listen to it.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin. I don't wanna feel your touch if it's empty again.
You might be wondering, it sounds way messier right now, but bear with me. So first of all, we're gonna add a limiter onto the reverb chain. I'm gonna call it the reverb chain, and we're gonna go to compressor, sidechain. We're gonna have vocal bus already in here because we linked it. So we're gonna reduce the threshold to around 35 dB. Ratio is gonna be 4:1:1, and we're gonna play around with the release according to our taste. So let's hear the vocal now.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin. I don't wanna feel your touch if it's empty again. I don't wanna feel your cold, cold hands. I don't wanna spend another night alone again.
If you still don't understand what the effect is doing, the only thing that it's doing is the reverb is playing only when the vocal is not playing. The reverb is still playing at a very, very low volume underneath the vocals, but the reverb is not present 99.9% of the time when the vocal is playing. So let's make it more interesting and play around with these knobs.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin. I don't wanna feel your touch if it's empty again. I don't wanna feel your cold, cold hands. I don't wanna spend another night alone again.
Let's listen to it in contrast to the mix.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin. I don't wanna feel your touch if it's empty again. I don't wanna feel your cold, cold hands. I don't wanna spend another night alone again.
So that is the infamous technique of reverb chaining. And Let's try that out with our synth now. So our synth right here is still in the state of normal reverb, if I'm right. Yeah, it still has normal reverb, and we're gonna mute that and listen to our synth once again. We're gonna mute everything and just keep our synth, the main synth melody. And once again, we're gonna name it. So let's once again link it to this track, which is I'm linking 20 to 21, and once again add EQ. So now I'm gonna explain why I'm adding the EQ. So when I'm adding EQ, I'm cutting off the very high end and all the mids, almost the low mid and the bass and sub frequencies, because we don't want those frequencies in our reverb. So that's the reason I'm cutting it out already, because the way you place things in these slots make a lot of difference. When you place a EQ after a reverb or before a reverb, or a reverb after a distortion or before a distortion, makes a huge difference. If you want to see how, you can try it out on your own, just experiment. But for now, I'm adding this EQ because the signal that is gonna get feed through here is gonna be EQ'd out already, so it will be already a clean signal for us to add reverb. So let's go further. We're adding reverb again, just like we did with the vocals. We can dive it up to 80%, warmer, 80 size, 159. I'm gonna do 3.5 seconds for the decay because it's a synth. And I'm gonna copy the EQ once again. So just in case after the EQ there are some frequencies in the very high end and the bass and the sub frequencies, it's gonna get cleaned out again. So let's listen to the synth now. Just like our vocal, let's add a limiter. So we're gonna do the limiting differently in here because there are no gaps between the melody. So if we keep the limiting the way it is, the reverb is not gonna pop out at all. So let's decrease it to 25 dB and decrease the release as well to around 190.98 milliseconds. And we're gonna keep the ratio the same, it doesn't affect. And lower the volume. Let's hear it now. Let's hear it in contrast to the mix. Way cleaner than just slapping on a normal reverb and getting done with it. So we can also make the reverb a bit more interesting by automating the volume of the reverb. For example, I want the reverb to go a bit crazy around this staccato notes, or as you can see, it's kind of an arpeggiated pattern. So let's go with it. We're gonna paste the same for all because it's a repeating pattern. And if you're wondering how I did this so fast, be sure to check out the shortcuts video. And yeah, let's listen to it now. So those are some reverb tricks that you can use on both synths and vocals. I believe you guys have definitely watched some alien movies or movies that have aliens in them. So if you are a producer watching those movies, you're gonna notice one thing for sure is how they add this reoccurring vocal effect onto the aliens' voices. Like, let me explain what I mean by this is you can already hear the alien is about to speak just before it speaks, because it feels like it's reoccurring and a sound is sweeping into his dialogue. So that is something of a cool technique that you can do in your music, and I'm gonna show you exactly how you can do it. And it is very handy to use with vocals especially, so I'm gonna show you with vocals for now. Let's duplicate this, make unique as sample, and we're gonna mute this. For this technique, we're gonna add these vocals to a new mixer track. Let's add to 45, and so what we're gonna do is reverse the sample and add a lot of reverb. And I'm not talking controlled reverb, but a lot of reverb. Let's hear it. Yo, that sounds like an ancient ritual, I know. But let's just mess around with it a bit more. And let's hit this, Alt plus R. So what we just did is we added reverb on this reversed sample, and I'm gonna show you what impact it had. So this was our sample, we're gonna mute it, and this was the sample that we have just rendered out. Let me show you. The real magic is when you reverse this sample. Let's hear it. Oh, come on.
Fingertips on my skin. I don't wanna feel your touch if it's empty again.
I think you now understand 100% what I meant. Let's add it to a mixer track, and we're gonna cut the very first part of this vocal where it almost starts. And we're gonna delete the rest of it, so that's not really necessary actually. We're gonna make it unique, make unique as sample. We're gonna make it fade out really smoothly, and let's try it out now. After adjusting the sample, we get this.
I don't wanna feel your fingertips on my skin. I don't wanna feel your skin. I don't wanna feel your touch if it's empty again. I don't wanna feel your cold, cold hands. I don't wanna spend another night alone again.
So that's another tip to make use of your reverbed vocals. First of all, reverse them, reverb them, and then reverse them again, and then chop the part off which you think will work. It's mostly the first part of any vocal or any sound. And that's about it for reverb tips and tricks. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to like this video and share it with your friends, and stay tuned for more videos like this.